Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another edition of Find Your Finish Line, the podcast that not only hopefully helps you find your finish line at a race or an event, but in life. I talk with people who have jumped over all kinds of hurdles to get to where they are today. And those hurdles sometimes are tough to get through, but when they do jump over them, they've got great stories to tell, and hopefully those will motivate you. And today, that is just one of those stories that is one of the best. She was deployed in Iraq in 2004 with the U.S. Army, became the first female American soldier to lose a limb in active combat when her vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. First Lieutenant Melissa Stockwell was honored with a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, and she made a promise to not let losing her leg slow her down. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
Hi there. I am great. I am super excited to be on here with you today. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Melissa, first off, did that promise you made was it to yourself or was it to someone else? Was it to your family? Who was that promise to?
I'd say that promise was more to myself, but I think it kind of carried over into family, friends, kind of anyone who was watching on. But it was kind of to myself, and honestly, for those, maybe soldiers who did lose more than one leg, that did give that ultimate sacrifice, and wanting to just kind of live my life for them as well.
Did you ever want to go back into service, into combat after that?
So when I was injured, it was early on in the war, in the Iraq War at least, in 2004. And as an above the knee amputee, it was rare to actually go back or to stay in the military. So all these years later, it's actually pretty common. Other soldiers have been back and deployed over over to a war with their amputation, but at that time it was pretty unusual. So it crossed my mind, but I kind of thought I could do more in the civilian world. So I chose to kind of get out of the military, got a medical retirement. But things have changed a lot, obviously, in the last 18 years, which is crazy, and a lot of people do stay in.
I know, especially you've got two beautiful children, Melissa, and isn't it amazing how the time when you say 18 years, and I looked up when you did Ironman Arizona, I think back in 2013, I'm going, what the heck? Everything seems like yesterday, but it's 10 years or 18 years. Isn't that crazy?
I know. It's crazy, and I talk about that. Yeah, I talk about that Ironman when I speak, because I do speak to motivational type speaking, and
Right.
It's crazy when I say 10 years ago in Ironman Arizona. I'm like, 10 years? How was that 10 years already?
Well, the 4 years since that accident, that is really a short amount of time when you find yourself on the United States Paralympic team and you're going to your very first Paralympics. But backing up just a little bit through the recovery, because so many people have gone through some very tough times. How did you set yourself up, or do you think you were set up mentally to be able to handle such a travesty at that time?
I don't think anyone ever expects it, right? Like, obviously, if you would have told me 20 years ago, like, hey, you're gonna go to a war and you're gonna lose a leg, I would have thought, like, no way, that's not gonna happen. So, like, you never expect things like that to happen, but they do, and they happen to all of us all the time. Maybe not a roadside bomb, but things that we can't control. I mean, COVID was obviously one of those. So, I think you're never really set up for it, and it's not really until it happens do you realize that you actually can, like we can get through it. We don't give ourselves enough credit on the things that we're capable of doing. So, I think was I ready for it? Probably not. But I surrounded myself with a good team, tried to keep that positive attitude. And I think, you kind of choose to wake up every day and to get through it. And then you can kind of end up sometimes even better, on the other side of those things that you don't expect.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because I love your comment. You've accomplished, you believe, so much more in your life on one leg than you could have ever thought about accomplishing on two. Which, when you say that, it's like, what are you kidding me? But it's absolutely true, and we'll go through that. But 4 years later, you did find yourself as the flag bearer in the Paralympics in 2008 in Beijing. You competed in swimming. Take us through that when all of a sudden you qualified for the team and you're carrying the flag in the Olympics for the United States of America.
Amazing. So yeah, almost 4 years to the, so I qualified for the team and kind of almost 4 years to the day after losing my leg. I was a total long shot to do that, but had a great meet at the trials, qualified. But then my experience in Beijing competitively was not nearly what I wanted it to be. I didn't make finals. I didn't have best time. So I was pretty disappointed kind of in my athletic performance. But then to be nominated to carry that flag, it's typically an honor that somebody who has won a bunch of medals or, gets. So I realized that, like, as much as I wanted a medal, I wanted to be on that podium. But I realized, I think, in Beijing that it's like the journey to get someplace is sometimes even more important than the medals. And I think I realized that when my teammates did, nominate me to carry that flag and to represent the entire Team USA, delegation in that closing ceremony. So it was a moment. I think we have those moments that you kind of go back and relive over and over again. I imagine you've had many of them, with certain people and events and, just carrying an object that I'm so passionate about, representing all of Team USA. It was amazing.
So that was the start of something pretty incredible, of a journey that you're still on, because we've got Paris next year and we'll talk about that. But after you left Beijing and knowing that you are a very competitive person and you drive yourself, but after leaving Beijing, did you have any inkling at all that, I'm just going to keep doing this every 4 years? I'm just going to keep doing it. This is what I want to do. This is my path. Did the light go on and say, well, this is my life's path, especially on the athletic side?
No, definitely not. After Beijing, pretty disappointed athletically. I was 28 years old at the time, and I thought, I'm so old. I should probably retire.
You're so old. I love that.
So I know, at 28 years old, right? Which is funny. So no, I kind of thought swimming. I enjoyed swimming, but I was kind of going to be done with swimming. Wasn't quite sure the path, what was going to happen next, and that's. Turns out, less than a year later, I did my first triathlon and kind of set those gears into motion. And here I am all these years later, still doing it and really, really loving it and still very passionate about it.
What turned you on to it, Melissa? Why triathlon?
Yep. So a group called the Challenged Athletes Foundation, which I know you're familiar with, out of San Diego, California. So they have a group called Operation Rebound, which is kind of like a subgroup of their foundation that is kind of for wounded veterans, for military personnel. And they invite these veterans to do these triathlons. So in 2009, got a call and said, hey, you want to come do a triathlon out in San Diego in October? I'm like, triathlon, that's crazy. Like, who wants to do a triathlon? You swim, you bike, you run. It's like the same day, the same time. I didn't even know I hardly even knew what a triathlon was. But I love to swim. I had recently got a prosthetic leg for running. I had never really been on a bike before, but I had a bike. So I'm like, I'll just go and give this a shot. So I remember I swam, I biked, I had a guide with me on the bike that he actually helped push me up the hills. But I crossed that finish line in La Jolla with Challenge Athletes Foundation. And I mean, I was hooked. Like, I loved it. I loved the camaraderie on the course. I loved the challenge of all three sports. I loved that I was on the course with able-bodied athletes and as somebody with a disability, like we shared the same course. And I was hooked pretty much from race one.
Yeah, I was there in 2009, announcing with Bob Babbitt, and I don't recall, we introduced everybody at the onset, but I don't recall your finish because we really didn't know one another. But isn't that amazing how something like that, a monumental event that you thought wasn't even possible, set you in a direction that is still your direction today?
I know it is pretty crazy. I will tell you probably the reason why you didn't see the finish. I think they were actually breaking down the course by the time I got to the finish. Everyone was at like the after party and I was still out there. It took me a while. Um, but you're right. Like I thought triathlons were crazy. Why would I ever do a triathlon? And here I am like, I think I really love this and set me on a path I never even knew existed, honestly.
And then the triathlon at the Paralympics in 2016 when Melissa Stockwell comes home with a medal. In your wildest dream, when you're holding that bronze medal, I mean, your wildest dreams. Like you've said, on two legs, you probably you wouldn't even have been able to hold somebody else's bronze medal. You know what I mean? And here you come home with one. A thrill, huh?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it'll go down as one of the greatest, days of my life. It was, it was amazing. So it was in Rio, sport a triathlon. The day was September 11th. So just very meaningful to have that USA uniform on. I got a bronze medal, felt like my own gold, but my teammates got gold and silver. So it was a USA sweep on September 11th. 3 American flags go up, the national anthem. I have, 20 family and friends there. It was, just thinking about the journey from, Baghdad, and then there was Beijing, and now I'm on that podium in Rio. I mean, talk about a journey, and I still get chills thinking about it. It was absolutely incredible.
And that was a great documentary that you did from Baghdad to Beijing. Are you? I was thinking about that when you were talking about the thrill and the 3 flags. And are you still in contact with any of your military brethren that you served with?
Honestly, thanks to social media, yes. And there's actually been a few times where I've been able to kind of meet up or have coffee with a few of them. But that's the beauty of what we have online these days, is we built to connect and keep in contact with really anyone that's out there. So I fortunately can connect with a bunch of them.
Good. That's good to hear. And then Melissa Stockwell, you decide to do an Ironman. What got into you?
You're right. I don't know. I heard you might be at the finish line. So Ironman Arizona 2013. So I think at the time so I was doing these elite para athletic events, and they're all sprint distance triathlons, and it's it's all about speed and about how fast you can go and how fast you can get to the finish line. And obviously Ironman is a very different sort of animal. And I wanted to sign up for it and do it because I wanted to test myself mentally. Obviously, you have to train and have that physical training as well. But I think Ironman can be so much more mental as well. And I wanted to kind of see if I could do it. Like, was I strong enough mentally to get to that finish line? So I signed up for it. It was. Coming across that finish line, the words, "Melissa, you are an Ironman," said by yourself, and I had American flag overhead, and so many doubts that day, wondering if I would get to that finish line, and then you finally get there, and you realize, oh my gosh, I did it, and you don't realize again what you can do until you try it, and that was a big realization for me that day.
That was an absolute thrill, and tears were flowing. I'll tell you that when you came across that finish line, and congratulations on that.
No, thank you. It was a day.
Let's talk a little bit about life.
Yeah.
You did a lot of training and racing without any children. Now, you went through some tough times with a divorce, but then found the love of your life. You've got 2 beautiful children. How does mom mix it up when you do have 2 kids and you're training for the Paris Olympics 2024 next year? A little bit different, huh?
Yeah, it's very different. It's life is busy. I think we're all busy, and I always say a busy life is a good life. But you put 2 kids in there that they have their own activities, and you got to pick them up at school at 2:50. The days are packed. I drop them off at 7:50. actually just got out of the pool. I might still have some goggle lines. So you kind of pack in the workouts, like you swim, you do some work, and then I'm gonna jump on the bike as soon as we're done. Then I'm gonna walk the dog. Then I'm gonna get groceries, and I'm gonna pick them up. So it's very much like every hour is kind of accounted for of the day, but definitely couldn't do it on my own. I have an incredible husband. He wants me to succeed in the things that I am passionate about, and he often is, here with the kids on his own for, a week at a time if I'm off traveling internationally or racing. We have a great network of babysitters and friends. So you can't do it alone, that's for sure. But at the same time, like it's so busy, but it's so fun. Like they're 8 and they're 5 now. So they're getting to the age where they know why I do what I do. And the hope is in Paris that they can come and see me race, and they'll be old enough to remember it. So they're a lot of my motivation on why I'm still racing.
I love that. My grandchildren, 2 boys, are 8 and 5, and it's it's amazing the awareness they have, especially the 8-year-old, and the conversations. And I hope you do get to take them to Paris, because they'll remember that immensely for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes.
So, do your kids love to show off your leg? Have they ever done a show and tell with the leg? With the prosthetic?
So it's funny. So I think they used to think, like when they were younger, that all moms only had one leg. I don't think they thought that I was any different than anyone. Like everyone just had one leg. And it wasn't until their friends started to notice. So I would drop them off at, daycare, and suddenly all their friends are pointing at it. And I remember my son, he kind of was like, wait a minute. Oh, I guess not. I guess she is a little bit different, So then it kind of became a thing, but it never, like, it's just, I was mom. It didn't, like, 1 leg, 2 legs, like, it doesn't matter. I'm just mom. But now, yes, I have gone to speak to their classes almost every year, just to kind of show the leg and, show the kids and what it can do. They call it my robot leg. Their friends. And honestly, I think I love being, I love being a parent that has something that's a little bit different. I mean, mine's obviously very visual, but it can show, honestly, like I get to show my kids like firsthand that we all have something like unique about us. Mine's very much more apparent, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can still like embrace that, and you can still have friends, and you can still be athletic, and you can still have big dreams. And it's like, you can just live your life like normal, and you just embrace what makes you different. So I honestly, I love it. And their friends, I love that, they can see me do the things that I do with a prosthetic leg, and it kind of just becomes the norm. Like it's just not a big deal.
One of the best philosophies I've ever heard, and you just said it, is embracing what makes you different. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I think we all need to constantly have in our mind. And you've gone through that, almost your entire life now. So the last 18, 20 years. Well, when the kids, when they go through life and they're listening to their parents and their friends and their family, but what do you want your kids to learn from you, Melissa?
Like resilient. I mean, I feel like as parents, we all want to teach our kids things, and I have no idea if anything I ever tell them is setting in. I need all the advice I can get. I see glimpses of it every so often, but I think probably resilience, that as they go about life. And I mean, I try not to be the one that's, if my daughter says, oh, I have a cut on my finger, I'm like, well, suck it up. I don't have a leg. It's like, you have to like it's all relative, right? Like you have a cut on your finger, and that's a big deal. So obviously compassion, but resilience, where when things happen, you just have to kind of roll with it, because there will be things that happen that you don't want to happen and that you don't expect. And that's just part of life. So just resilience, obviously just being a good human, being kind, being good to people. I mean, kind of things that, I think you want to raise your kids just to be good people, and just to do good in the world and in general.
I just thought of that when you said it. Oh my gosh. Your poor kids, suck it up. I don't have a leg, and you're bitching and moaning about this little scrape on your knee. Oh my God.
Right, I don't do that. I think it, but I don't do that. Or else it would never, I don't, yeah, I'm not sure how that would go over.
Well, actually, I think you can look forward to it because when they're like 14, 16, 17 years old, you can really throw it at them, you know?
That'll be the time, right? When they're 5 and 8, might be a little bit young still, but yeah, when they're teenagers, that's all they're gonna hear.
Oh, I love it. Let's go back to your training for 2024 Paris Paralympics triathlon. And when you schedule workouts and get them done or not get them done, are you disappointed when you don't maybe attain your goal on a workout on a particular day?
You know, the older I've gotten and the more experienced I've been in the sport, and honestly, with kids and realizing that everything can't always be perfect, I've gotten a lot better at it. I think a lot of newer athletes, or I mean, even athletes that have been in the sport, 5, 10 years, I used to let it get to me. Like you have a bad workout, you're like, oh no, like this workout means my training isn't working, and my next race is not going to be what I want. But the older I get and the more I do, if I don't hit like yesterday I had mile repeats on the track. I had 4 of them. 3 were great. The 4th one wasn't, it was okay. It wasn't great, but I kind of walked away like, okay, I gave it my best. I did what I could do. And next time I'm going to go back and try to hit that fourth one as well. So I think, I'm not really as upset, honestly, really at all. It's kind of comes with the territory. If you hit every one of your workouts, I don't think maybe you're not training hard enough, or it's like you have to have some down workouts or some workouts that don't go as planned to like realize like to have the good workouts mean even more, if that makes sense.
Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Curad Performance Series, the official medical supplier of Ironman. Curad's far infrared kinesiology tape encourages faster recovery and enhanced performance. Don't let the aches and pains of everyday training and racing slow you down. Make sure you check out all the Curad products at Amazon.com, at Walmart, and Ironman.com. And let Curad help you find your finish line. We're speaking with Melissa Stockwell, Purple Heart recipient, bronze medalist, Paralympics, training for the 2024 Paris Paralympics competition. By the way, where are the qualifications at? Where are they at?
So for paratriathlon, it's kind of a confusing process. It's like a year-long qualification period. You do a certain amount of races, you get points, you have to be within a world ranking. So our qualification period starts July 1st, and I'll be racing in Montreal, I'll be in Paris, I'll be in Yokohama. Worlds are in in Spain, Point of Vedra. I don't know how you say that. And then so it's kind of a combination of your best 3 races. You get points. The points add up to a certain world ranking, and then it kind of goes from there.
So what's your competition like?
So in the Paralympics, we have disability classification. So I'm the PT2 classification, which is basically severe leg impairment. And our classification is the smallest one. It has not a lot of growth in it. For whatever reason, female severe leg impairments worldwide are not plentiful. We need to recruit more athletes. So the athletes that I'm competing against, I've been competing against honestly for like 4, sometimes 8 years. So we all know each other. We know the strengths and the weaknesses. Like we know exactly almost what each other can do in the race. So it'd be nice to have some new blood in there just to kind of have that excitement, because when we get on that starting line, it's almost like when we get out of the swim, we kind of know where everyone's going to be. We know who we need to kind of catch on the bike and who might pass us on the run. So it's kind of this just kind of seeing who has a better day, really.
Yeah, and it's still the same 3 picked with 1 alternate, correct?
For Paralympic, it's 2. So we only have 2. I wish we had 3. So we have 2, and then 1. But then they have these. They're called invite slots. So actually, for both Rio and for Tokyo, I got what's called an invite slot. So my 2 other USA competitors in my disability classification earned their slot, but my world ranking was high enough where I got like an invite slot, basically.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
now I understand that.
yeah,
Wow,
it's a
that's
little
an
bit different than
interesting
the Olympic side.
process. Yeah, interesting process. Wow. So when Paris comes around, and I have all the confidence that you're going to be on that team. Uh, does Melissa Stockwell see herself winning a gold medal?
I think you always have to visualize it, right? I mean, and again, we talked about workouts. If I have a good workout and my training is like spot on, I mean, why not? Like, it's like, why not? I kind of waver back and forth because it's like there's always a certain amount of self doubt, but then there's also needs to be a sort of like air of confidence of why else am I doing this training day in and day out if I'm not going to go and give it everything I have to be on the top of that podium. So I think when that starting line, when that, ready, set, when I start that swim, I am performing to the best of my ability. And if that gets me on top of that podium, then, oh gosh, I don't even know what I would do at that point. But I think that's why we do, that's why we do what we do, right? We're
Right.
aiming to be on that podium. We're aiming to be on that top spot. And that's why my days revolve around training. That's why we sacrifice time away from our family to try to make it a reality. So I love wearing the Team USA uniform. To be on that podium with that uniform on. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Proud moments, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Melissa, you're a business owner with your husband on a prosthetic company. You talk about jumping into this full circle. I mean, full tilt. Tell us about that. How'd you guys get that started?
Yep. So my husband my family and I moved up to Colorado Springs so I could train at the Olympic Training Center in 2019. 2020, so both my husband and I went to school for prosthetics, so fitting other amputees with artificial limbs. And when we moved out here, my husband was kind of in between jobs as we moved out here. And a few months after we'd been here, he kind of said, like, why don't we start our own business? And starting a business is scary. Like, can you live on it? Like, how's it going to work? But the timing was just like, you never know unless you try, that kind of mindset. So rented a place, got the equipment in early 2020, like a month before COVID hit. We opened our doors. It's called Tolsma Stockwell Prosthetics. That's my name and his last name. And we have made it through COVID and are a thriving business. Honestly, the credit goes heavily towards my husband, Brian. But we have fit elite level athletes, we fit the general population, orthotic devices, prosthetic devices. We have helped dozens and dozens and dozens of patients kind of resume their normal life. So pediatrics, adults, elite athletes, injured service members, we kind of see them all, but it's been incredibly successful, which is really exciting.
Yeah, they are expensive. How's the medical industry and the insurance industry on paying for that for people that need them?
It's tough, and especially with athletic, like activity-specific legs. So, like, I have a prosthetic running leg that I use pretty much every day, but a leg like that would not be covered by insurance, which is crazy. Here I am missing a leg, and I want to go and run, and I can't do that without a prosthetic leg, and insurance isn't going to cover it. So it depends on insurance. A lot of times they might cover, 80%, sometimes 100% of a everyday leg, kind of like a leg that you would, like I wake up every morning, I put my leg on and kind of my walking leg. But athletic legs, it's really tough. So when you come to athletes, truly grateful. There's organization like the Challenge Athletes Foundation, Dare to Try, Triathlon Club. There's these different organizations that have these grant programs. You can apply for a running leg. Maybe if you're an athlete in a wheelchair and you want, a hand cycle to bike with or a racing chair, like you can apply for these grants that provide this equipment that insurance doesn't cover. So it can be really frustrating because you think insurance would want us to be active to, hopefully hinder any future impairments because we're not active. So it can be frustrating for sure, but luckily there's different ways to kind of work around it if you know where to look.
Right, right. Yeah, and Dare to Try Paratriathlon, you were a co-founder of that, and obviously the Challenge Athletes Foundation, two great places to start. If you've ever seen Melissa run, and you check it out on YouTube, but so many places, she swings her leg out wide, and the reason you do that is you chose not to have a knee as part of your prosthetic, where you get to bend your leg. Why was that, Melissa?
Yeah, so if you see me run, and you're right, I kind of swing my leg out to the side. It looks so unnatural, and you're like, why would she do that? So I have, so every amputee has like what's left of their leg is all different. So I only have 4 inches of my femur left, which is pretty short. There's not a lot of bone there. There's not a lot of leverage there. And when you run with a knee, just the mechanics of it, the prosthetic knee has to be fully extended, so fully straight before it hits the ground, or it's going to buckle and you're going to fall. So because I have such like a short lever arm, the energy I was expending to try to get that leg completely extended so I wouldn't fall was hindering how fast and how far I could run. So without a knee, I don't have to worry about a knee buckling. Honestly, like when you think about like just the human body, like in the hip, like the hip is a ball joint. So I've never had any issues with my hip. It's kind of meant to kind of do that rotation. And it took me a little bit to get used to, but I can run further, faster, longer than I ever could with the knee. So it's very much person dependent, but that's the way I've chosen to go, and it's proven successful for me.
Well, it's all about faster. You know that, don't you?
Yes.
all about faster. Got to get to that finish line faster. So you came out and you wrote a book, Power of Choice. That came out at the beginning of 2020, didn't it?
It did. The idea was for it to come out around the Olympics of 2020, but then that all got postponed and COVID happened. So it just kind of came out on a random day. Yeah.
What was your main objective of putting it all down in words?
Yeah, so the book is called Power of Choice. And so I do motivational speaking for, schools, companies, kind of all around the nation. And the message is, when I speak, power of choice as well. And the idea is that if I finish speaking to you, or maybe you finish reading the book, is that you kind of think about your own lives and how we all have the power of choice to kind of choose to live the life that we want to live. So it's all about, how do you find your own potential? How do you, wake up every morning and choose to live the best day that you can live? How do you make it through unforeseen obstacles that come your way? And the hope is that people kind of realize that they can do that with their own lives, and they kind of rise up and make the choices to live the life that they want to live.
I love that. And you did I'm going to talk to you about this on a personal level back and forth, because you voiced the audiobook, didn't you?
I did not.
Oh, come on! Really?
I wanted to, but again, it was all happening during COVID, and I was going to have to fly and quarantine, and then COVID kind of threw a wrench in that. So unfortunately, I did not. I'm not sure if I can go back and do that. Potentially down the road, I will do that.
Yeah, you can. It's a challenging process. It took me 2 days, 19 hours to do mine. And
wow.
It's a challenging process because when you're reading your own words, it's interesting. You just want to ad lib. You start telling a story and they're stopping you and go, "What are you doing?" That's not, I go, oh yeah, sorry about that. So anyway, but it happens. The other thing is, I'm jealous. You were in the same room and you got to meet all 4 living presidents. I remember once I was at a golf tournament and Gerald Ford walked by me back in the day, and oh my God, I was like 5 feet from a president. But you're in the room with 4 of the living presidents. Tell us about that, and like what they say to you.
Oh gosh, it was so surreal. So it was the opening of the President Bush Library down, George W. Bush down in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been friendly with George W. Bush a few times. He has a mountain bike ride that he invites wounded veterans on. So I've been on that ride, and we had kind of gotten to know each other. So he invited me to say the Pledge of Allegiance at the opening of his library down in Dallas. So super honored. And I go and I know all the presidents are going to be there. And I'm going up. So the Pledge of Allegiance kind of starts the event off. So I was kind of waiting like in the back to kind of go up on stage when it started. So this woman kind of puts me into this room, and it's like this empty room. And I'm kind of standing there like, this is so strange. Like this big event's about to start. And I'm like here by myself. All of a sudden from around the corner, there's like dozens of Secret Service, George W. Bush, Obama, President Obama, Jimmy Carter, Clinton, are all walking towards me with their spouses, Condoleezza Rice, and I'm like pressing myself back up against the wall, like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing here? And President Bush sees me, he comes over and he says, hey, let me introduce you to my friend. And he goes around and he's like, and this is President Clinton, this is President Carter. I'm like, nice to meet you, Mr. President, nice to meet you, Mr. President. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, and all their wives, and then there's all this small talk, and then it was just crazy. I mean, it was one of the craziest moments of my life. And then the event starts. They all file up on stage. I file up and I say Pledge of Allegiance. They all kind of join in, and then it's done. I go back to my seat, and President Bush yells out, "That a girl, Melissa?" And like gives me away. It was just like the whole day was just like, am I actually living? Am I actually doing this? But it's a great story. I am very surreal, and talk about patriotism and going home, just like exuding, everything that I loved about this country.
Well, the proud patriot that you are, and you represent the United States of America as well as anybody out there, Melissa. So the president should have been honored to be in your presence.
Oh,
And if I was there, I would have told him that.
well, thank you. That's great.
So we all have age group athletes and professionals in triathlon, but I always say the age grouper is the heart and soul, and you know so many of them. And it's tough keeping the schedule going and balancing the family life and trying to do triathlon. What advice would you give them to keep pushing and keep moving forward?
I think triathlon is a sport. Like I think, and I'm sure you've heard this. Like you go up to someone, you say, "Hey, like I'm super involved in triathlons," and some people just look at you like you're crazy. Like, "Oh, I can never do a triathlon." I think people think you have to have, the best, the fastest bike, and the best running shoes and the best, but you really don't. Like you can get out there with a bathing suit that you have. You can get on, it doesn't have to be a road bike. It can be a mountain bike with a basket on it, right? Depending on what race you're doing. And a lot of times, like people just, you don't give yourselves enough credit on like just, you don't have to train 40 hours a week to go out and do a sprint distance triathlon. The majority of us could just go to a triathlon this weekend, and we're not going to win it, but we're going to finish it. And then you kind of get that self-motivation, that self-confidence, and then maybe you start training. So I think realizing that it doesn't have to take over your life if you want to go do a triathlon. Like you can train when you can and then go see how you do. And if you want to get further into it, like find a coach, find a team, find a master swim team to swim with. Like eventually things will kind of fall into place, but it doesn't all have to happen. Like it doesn't all have to happen overnight. And then if you're a parent, if you got a full-time job, and like you might have to get up early in the morning and get those runs in, or on a Saturday morning if you're you might need there's a group that you go on a bike ride with, you spend a few hours Saturday morning on that bike ride. So there are definitely sacrifices if you want to become competitive or do those longer races. But when you get to that finish line, honestly, it's worth it.
Well, as they say, the more sacrifice you make, the more you can celebrate at that finish line, and the more it becomes worthwhile. So you're correct about that. Hey, I just remembered something because I saw it the other day. I'm going to ask you, are you a better skier on one leg than you are a snow skier? My God, I saw you slashing through it's crazy. I wish I could have skied like that.
No, I think I love skiing, and I ski on one leg, and I have these little poles that kind of help me balance, little skis on the end of them. The feeling of flying down a mountain on one leg, like with the wind in your face, I feel so free. I don't know. Like, I grew up skiing on two legs. I don't even remember what that felt like, but I love it. I love going fast. I love it. I don't know. I love it. Yeah.
I can just imagine everybody on the slopes, and here she comes all 5 foot whatever of you flying by. They're going, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
That's got to be a great feeling. Well, the last question on Find Your Finish Line, Melissa, comes out of the Baja 1000 racing. I've got friends that race the Baja down in Mexico. And afterwards, tradition, they get together and sit around a table, and they call it table racing. They reminisce about the race, about the event, or any event. I call it tri-table racing. So reminisce with us of an event or something that happened at an event that comes to mind right now.
Honestly, it's Rio. I think the Rio Paralympics is always what's going to come to mind. And so it's Copacabana Beach, it's September 11th, Team USA uniform on. I swim, I bike, I run, and I'm in third place. And I know my teammates are in first and second place. I know fourth place is gaining in. I see my husband Brian on the sidelines. I have like a mile and a half left of the run. And I mean, first, like my teammate was like about to finish and win. And my husband, I mean, he is so supportive, and he's probably sweating and more nervous than I am. And he's pacing back and forth along the race course. And he's like, you got this, babe. You can catch her. You can win. And I'm like, I'm not going to win. Where's fourth place? Where's fourth? Like, just tell me where fourth is. But it was just one of those moments of just like how much he like believed in, even though first, like I was a mile behind, right? But just trying to kind of keep up and keep that place, just not to let fourth catch me. And then coming down that carpet, my family and friends in the stands. It was, I mean, I get chills when I think about it. It's, I think about that moment often, and just how much it meant, you know, it was just a day that, I mean, it's just one of the greatest days of my life. Yeah.
That is a beautiful reminisce. I love it. You're going to win, babe. Win. Where's fourth place?
Where's fourth? Yeah, I'm not winning. I'm good with that. Like, where's fourth? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Melissa Stockwell, I know sometimes you don't want to hear it all the time, but you are a true American hero. You are a Olympic medalist. You are an Ironman. You are a beautiful mother and wife, a partner, and it's an honor to have you on the podcast. So thank you very much for joining us, and I cannot wait to watch 2024 Paris and what you do there.
Thank you. And truly, thank you for having me on. You are a legend. You are such a legend in the sport, and just really honored to chat with you today. And just thanks for all that you've done and that you've added to so many people's lives. And I mean, your voice is one of the most recognizable ones in the sport. So just thank you for being a part of that.
Well, I appreciate that, Melissa. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. Remember, when you go through life or when you're racing, you're the cause of your own experiences. If you take that into account, you'll take responsibility for everything you do, and it will help you get to that finish line. Take care, everybody. My warmest aloha.